Alrighty, fit folk. In today's video, we are going to talk about what the best exercise for weight loss is. And we're going to kind of take a helicopter view of the word exercise and try and give you some priorities for how to think about exercise. Because a lot of the time, like if you look at January Google Trends, you'll see people going nuts over doing cardio, thinking that, yeah, cardio is the best exercise for weight loss. Well, that's not what the science says. So we want to try and give you a strategic idea of what the best exercise for weight loss is. So you can kind of program in your exercise in a logical way that will maximize your results for the amount of time you put into it. Now, at the bottom of our pyramid is diet, because essentially diet is the best exercise for weight loss. There is no weight loss without the correct calorie intake. It doesn't matter whether you're doing the Tour de France, you're lying in a hospital bed. If the calorie intake is out of whack, there's no deficit, there's no weight loss. A simple way to think about this is say, okay, if I want to lose a pound a week, we'll just imagine it all comes from fat, although it doesn't, just for the sake of it. Let's say we want to create a 3,500 calorie deficit per week. If we were to do that via diet, let's say we have 5 days at 700 calories below where we're at and a couple at normal, that can be achieved with some changes, with a bit of meal planning, with a little bit of, just thinking. If we try and create that deficit using purely more exercise, 3,500 calories is a colossal amount of exercise. That's going to take even someone very fit, it's going to take them probably 5 to 6 hours of serious exercise to create that deficit. And even then, you've got the problem of the hunger spike resulting from that exercise. So what generally happens is people do a bunch of exercise, it creates hunger, and they eat a lot of it back, or they compensate in the rest of the day by not being as active. Like if you hammer yourself with some intervals, you're often a bit more sluggish around the rest of the day. So it often is the fact that diet doesn't return the type of weight loss results that we expect, and we see it all through the studies. So at the bottom of our pyramid, we have diet, because using sensible diet setup is by far the easiest and most sensible way to lose weight. Next up, rather than jump to cardio or even intervals, we're going to talk about strength training. And this is kind of quite specific, because if you're using diet, and everyone is, you've got to create a deficit. So when you're losing weight, you're automatically putting your metabolism under some stress. Your mind, your brain senses from your hormonal system that you're losing weight, and it starts to do two things. It starts to down-regulate your energy expenditure and ramp up your hunger. And something that can really help with the down-regulation of your energy expenditure and to protect your muscle mass and your metabolic rate is strength training. That's why you always, well, it's not purely for bodybuilders, but a lot of sensible people, when they're dieting to lose weight, it's really smart to eat enough protein and to lift some heavy things, because it will keep some upward pressure on your metabolism, which is really important, because losing metabolic rate in the long run can really hold you back. And these are calories that you really need to keep on losing weight, but also just to keep thriving. So we've got strength training second. Next up, we're going to talk about intervals. Now, intervals are, we can think of them as cardio in a short sense, like high intensity intervals, or just really any sport where you do something short and sharp and then you stop. Now, the great thing about intervals, whether it be, on a bike or swimming or sprinting or even in a sport, is that they act a little bit differently to cardio. They're kind of between strength and cardio. In cardio, you're largely trading for calories. Whereas with intervals, you're actually kind of creating some changes in your body. Because the real benefit is that you push over your lactate threshold. And lots of studies show that for your body's composition, in order to elicit energy out of fat as opposed to out of your muscle, intervals are a little bit superior. The problem with intervals is that people jump into them when they're not fit enough to do them. So they're often something that you've got to work up to. You don't want to go crazy. Your heart and your lungs are muscles too. And if you haven't been exercising, jumping into really strenuous intervals is not a good idea. It's a terrible idea. But intervals can be really time effective. They can be great for your fitness, and they can help with your body's composition. So that's why we've got them after strength, but before cardio. Now, for the fourth one, we're talking about cardio. I think cardio is kind of misbranded. When people think about cardio for weight loss, it's not overly sensible. There are there are lots of people who get absolutely ripped without doing any cardio. They've just got a really well set up diet, normally with macros, and heavy lifting. And that can be enough for a lot of people to get ripped like crazy, shredded. On top of that, you might add some intervals, but then cardio, thinking about cardio as a weight loss tool, I think is a mistake, because essentially cardio is one of the healthiest things you can do. An hour of, steady state cardio per week where you're pushing and gradually getting better is possibly second only to quitting smoking in terms of improving your health. It's one of the most wonderful health tools that we have, and yet people are wrongly using it for weight loss. I've put it here because I think it's really sensible, but it's not something that you want to be prioritizing before you've got your diet and your strength training in place. So for instance, if you've got your diet, that's setting up your deficit, then you've got your strength training, maybe 2 full body sessions a week. That's the time at which you want to start adding some cardio for your health, or maybe as you get fitter, working that cardio into intervals. And then lastly, we're going to talk about walking. Now, walking is possibly the most underrated weight loss tool in the world. It doesn't burn many calories. It's not going to create sudden results, and it's not going to make you sweat, and it's not going to make you blow, and it's not that trendy, but it is incredibly easy, and you are 5 seconds from walking virtually anytime you're awake. And if you look at the National Weight Loss Registry in America, this is a database that studies people who have kept a lot of weight off, like 30 kilos off over a 5-year period on average, so 70 pounds over 5 years. When they studied them, they found that they all expend kind of 2,500 calories per week, a lot of energy expenditure in exercise. And they found that the majority of that actually comes from walking, just walking blocks. Very, very simple. But walking is incredibly useful and can be incredibly important for keeping weight off once you've lost weight. And that's the thing with exercise. Exercise is not always the best tool for losing weight. It can keep you in shape as you're dieting down, but it doesn't always help the weight loss that much. But what it does do is it helps you partition calories into your muscles, and it helps to kind of keep your metabolic motor going. And then in the long run, it shows that it's incredibly important for keeping weight off, because, realistically, you're not going to spend your whole life dieting yourself down to kind of low calorie levels. It's just a horrible way to be. But as you come out of a diet and you go back to your maintenance level calories, if you've got a really good exercise regime in place, you can go forth and you can really enjoy your life. And it's great for your fitness, it's great for partitioning calories into your muscles, and it's really, really great for your health. Now, we'll wrap that up. So, we use diet to create the deficit and to ensure weight loss. At a minimum, we're trying to lift twice a week, full body type of session. It doesn't matter what your flavor is, whether you're a power lifter or body weight stuff or whatever. It's just a really good idea to try and keep your muscles going and your metabolism going. Then on top of that, for your health, and maybe to elicit a little bit more fat response, we can add in some cardio. So maybe an hour a week of cardio, a couple of sessions of just steady state stuff if you need to recover for heavy lifting, or if you've got other fitness goals, you're playing a sport, then interval type stuff. And then just generally adding walking into your day, whether that's kind of, with your workplace, it doesn't really matter what, but walking is just an incredible way in the long run, just being a more active person, to keep your body in shape and for your health. And yeah, so that's basically it. This is a kind of priority system. So you start with your basis for weight loss. The best exercise for weight loss is always diet. It's just so much more efficient. Then you've got strength, looking after your metabolism. Then we've got some intervals because they're more effective in terms of eliciting a fat loss response. Then cardio, which is pretty much the healthiest thing you can do. Don't write it off. And lastly, just general walking, because it's great for your long-term maintenance of weight loss. Hope you enjoyed that. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you jump on the email list and get our 5 simple strategies to start losing weight cheat sheet.